Vivian's gonna light the chalice. Or green chalice, I can work. Y'all remember this one? We light this chalice to celebrate Unitarian Universalism. Ours is a church. Ours is a church of the loving heart. Ours is a church of the helping hands. Gorgeous. All right, Dave. You're up, sir. He's mathing, I think.
So, this is an open meeting, which means that visitors and new members
Mike,
are welcome to.
Mike, you gotta use the mic.
This is an open meeting, which means that visitors and new members are welcome to attend. However, in order to vote and count toward a quorum, you have to have been a member for at least 3 months, which means you joined on or before March 8th of this year. The community trusts that we each honor these rules. Our bylaws require 20% of voting members to be present to conduct business. That would be 99 people. We will now take a count. So if you can please raise your hand if you are a voting member. We'll go ahead. I might not hit 75.
And there were 21 that were absentee.
No, those don't count.
Four in the booth.
4 in the booth. Yeah, I counted you, so that's another 3, so that's 78. How many do we have online? 5. 5? Okay, so I think that puts us at like 83. So if we don't, it sounds like we don't have a quorum, but we can proceed if 80% of the voting members present vote to do so. We do not have a quorum, but we can proceed if 80% of the voting members present vote to do so. Since we have 83 members present, we need 64 to proceed. All in favor of proceeding without a quorum, please raise your hand and keep them raised so that we can get a count. What?
Just do it.
Okay. Anybody opposed? No? Okay, I think yes. We have all right.
We're good.
We have enough votes to proceed with our meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. As you can see here is our hopefully not too lengthy agenda for the rest of the meeting. I think I need to read it to you. I think y'all can get it. Yes? Okay. At this time, I would like to recognize our entire amazing staff. Alicia Hutto, Kelly Green, John Herrick, Belinda Perry, Paula Gribble, Christy Miller, Tom Moore, and attending her first of many to come annual meetings, Reverend Emmanuel Sue. Dedication has grown immensely. Their unique skills and committed dedication are invaluable to the functioning of our community. Again, join me in thanking them. Y'all rise if you feel like it or are able. So we appreciate their continued service. I'd now like to welcome our beloved Director of Administration, my sacred board advisor and mentor, Lisa Hutto, who will provide us with an overview of the proposed budget. 2025. Right now, we have a year-to-date net income of $18,811, but based on budget, that is unfavorable by $13,521, with pledge income being the main driver. This year, we have experienced a significant drop in pledge income overall. One of our bright spots is that we have continued to overperform in the areas of other income, which includes reimbursements from open door, interest, as well as rentals. Overall, we have experienced some of this drop in income due to member attrition, meaning members who have left for various reasons, which is outside of our control, and also some members who have changed their pledge in the middle of our pledging cycles. One thing I do want to remind everybody is that we're migrating to an annual campaign, but we're still under the seasonal campaigns, in which we have people who are able to adjust their pledges in the middle of a congregational year. So creating budgets over the last 6 years, even with my predecessor, has been a very difficult task. And like I said, this year, unfortunately, we weren't able to meet the pledge expectations, and this has kind of been a trend now for the last couple of years. And y'all will see that information as we start to go over the proposed budget for the upcoming year. Even though we do have a surplus as of the end of April, we are still expected to end this year with a deficit. Hopefully it won't be as high as we projected at the $34,000 mark, but I just want to make sure that everybody understands that we're still trending towards ending the year with that number. Does anyone have any questions about the current financials? Yes, Derek.
Can you put them on the screen? That's the ODS budget.
If you can go back, I didn't put the actual April financial report in the PowerPoint, it's just the two proposed budgets that's in the PowerPoint. But if anybody would like a copy of the April financial, I can make sure that you get a hard copy. Any more questions? Yes, Tom.
Since you stated that we're going to be in deficit, how many people have come forward to help us? Do you have any idea of that?
We have about maybe 10 or 12 people that have increased their pledge since we sent out the 2 additional pleas after the pledge campaign in this current year.
Since it's hard for people to see that small print, Lisa, where can people find the budget on an ongoing, regular basis?
It has been in current. It's been in current since May 21st. It is also been sent as a direct email at least twice this week too. And as I mentioned, anybody who has any questions about the current financials, I can make sure that I can personally email you a copy. I'm sorry I didn't include the actual April financial report in here, but overall, I will be communicating out to the congregation each quarter where we are financially.
Anyone else?
Now, I will proceed with the proposed budget for 25-26. Current pledges are down 5% from last year. New member pledges have offset this slightly, which has resulted in an overall decrease of about $2,000 over last year. Anticipated new member pledge income for 2025-26 is based off of anticipated levels by June 2025, meaning we do have to still kind of prorate because we're not complete with this year, and we have had some people join since the writing of this report. So we're currently budgeting about $4,000 less in new member income than the current year. And this is resulting in an overall decrease of pledge income of about $14,000. For 3 years, contributions have trended above budget by more than 5%, but this current year, that has not come into fruition. We're planning for a decrease in contribution income of about $10,000, and other income includes increase in rental revenue, insurance reimbursements from open door, and of course, interest income. So if you factor in the decreases in anticipated This yields a decrease in overall income for the 2025 congregational year of $19,391. Now for the expense side. Personnel expenses are projected to be about $37,670 higher than the current year. Personnel expenses also include an increase of calibrating our insurance payments. So our congregation runs on a fiscal year, but of course Blue Cross Blue Shield runs on a calendar year. So each year for the first 6 months of the year, we know the exact insurance rates, and then the increases come in at the end of this year. So we actually have to make an educated guess on what to budget for the following 6 months of the year. And of course, we tend to guess one number, and of course it turns out to be another number. So what we've had to do is recalibrate that number to what we're actually paying, and then we're also factoring in a 10% increase for January through June of next year. The previous year's budget also included 11 months for salary for Reverend Amanda because she started August 1st. So this will be the first year in which we will need to factor in 12 months salary for Reverend Amanda. It also includes the addition of one staff member to our insurance plan, which we hadn't had in the previous year. So there was an increase tied to that. And then it also includes a very, very nominal salary increase for staff members whose salaries were well below UUA and their compensation levels.
But not all staff
But
members.
not all staff members were able to.
We have not increased.
We also have nominal increases and decreases across several program areas based on need. Family ministries allocation of resources have been decreased, while we've actually increased some resources to ARESD. We are planning to offer coming of age this year, but unlike previous years, we don't have as many youth participating, so we don't anticipate the need that we've had in the past. So that is reflected in the current year's budget. All right, program support includes parts of our operation that supports all of our programs such as stewardship, communications, and healthcare. This expense area has been increased due to a more expansive stewardship effort. For those of y'all who have been paying attention, we just engaged consultant Mark Ewert in helping us transition over to an annual campaign. And with that, we're expecting to need more resources because we're expecting to do a lot more stuff. We're going to be marketing, we're going to have a lot of what we call celebration around stewardship in an effort to get the congregation energized. So of course we needed to beef up the funds for stewardship as well. And the unfortunate part of this budget, which brings me great disappointment, we will be stopping our allocation to reserves because it doesn't make any sense to continue to put money into reserves if we're going to have a deficit budget that far exceeds what we're putting into reserves. And of course, with great regret, we are decreasing our allocation to the UUA. We did not make this decision lightly. It was a lot of back and forth. It was a lot of take it out, put it in, let's play with the numbers a little bit. And we're still giving something, but I don't feel it's at the level that we should be giving at because we do use UUA resources. And for those of y'all who've been very active this year, it should have been very evident. All the ways we use the UUA, from having them here and having a wonderful installation last weekend, being able to engage a stewardship consultant. We're going to have a consultant come in and help facilitate our staff retreat this year. We use them for our ministerial search. All of us are a part of UUA's professional associations, which we talk with other colleagues to get advice. We lean on each other for several things. And of course, they're the administrator of our benefits. So we use them very heavily. And one of the things that I do want this congregation to think about, in addition to not being able to do salary increases for some time, is to also factor in the fact that we want to get back to the contribution levels that we have been at. So we have a very, very steep hill to climb in the current year. One of our plans that we have in the current year is to fundraisers and special drives just to try to get them more money than we're able to give them out of our budget. So we hope that those who really care will show up when we're trying to help make up for that shortfall with our contribution to the UUA. We have a slight increase in facility because maintenance is just higher. Everybody charges more at this point. We also have a slight increase in our office expenses, mainly IT, because we use a lot of cloud-based services. And those reoccurring services all have just general annual increases. And of course, insurance. It's high. It's gonna keep getting higher. So the last increase there is tied to our increase with insurance and electronic processing fees. So I've said a lot, still nervous. So if you guys have any questions, I open the floor to questions now.
Wait, were you running?
You want me to take that?
Oh, Kathy's back.
First of all, I want to express my great appreciation to you, to our excellent finance team, our board, and everyone else who was involved in preparing the budget. You all do a great job. How many years have we, in a row, have we proposed a deficit budget to the community for a vote?
We proposed two in a row. We've had 3 deficit budgets in a row. One of those years, we had a modest, like, $2,800 surplus, but we ended up having like a $5,000 deficit that year. So this is 3 deficit budgets.
So for everyone's information, how will we make up the deficit?
We will be making up the deficit through the use of our reserves.
How much is our reserves?
Our reserves at the end of June will be $189,000.
Has the board or have you done a projection long-term into the future based on past trends as to where we're going?
Yes, we have. The finance team, well, myself with members of the finance team recently just did a reserve review. It does cover a lot of high-end capital items such as the elevator, HVAC units, not small items. But we should be able to finish this year, cover this year's deficit, and of course this current year's deficit, and still have about $100,000 left in reserves. It's not ideal. We definitely need more than that. Based on a 10-year projection, we should be putting in about $32,000 each year to be able to cover everything that we need over the course of the next 10 years before we do another review.
And we're not even coming close.
We're not coming close because we're not putting money back into reserves.
I do remember when we had $250,000 in reserve. So this question's to the board. What is the board's plan for increasing revenue or cutting expenses so that we can have a balanced budget as we are supposed to do and as our governing policies require?
Pledge income.
For the board.
Pledge income, that's the whole point of having Mark come in and do this stewardship work, is the pledges are down and it's, the community needs to grow. That's, without that, the place won't make it. So we're gonna be putting everything and inviting everyone to put all the attention into that right now. There's nothing to really cut anymore. And I think staff, and it breaks my heart that they haven't had salary increases.
Have you looked at other potential sources of revenue?
We have not looked, we're letting finance handle that, and it was their directive really to work on stewardship right now.
Well, I will look for the budget. It just seems to me to be placing a lot on the shoulders of the consultant and the work that he is going to do for us.
I hear that, Barry.
Yes, go ahead.
And Barry, I do want to say that we're not alone within the UUA of what we're experiencing. There just has been a downturn in not only Unitarian Universalism, but spirituality as a whole. We are faced with, if this budget is approved, we don't have any other bandwidth to approve another deficit budget.
Yes.
That is cut right where we are. Right now, what we need to do is to re-energize this congregation
congregation and get people back involved. So it's not necessarily resting on Mark's shoulders to just kind of sprinkle some fairy dust and everything is magically gonna be okay. It is everybody's responsibility here. We're gonna need everybody, all hands on deck. If you know people who are on the fringes, tell them to come check us out. I know that we've had a pandemic, we've had a lot of changes in personnel, and people just may not be connected in that way anymore. Invite them to come back and experience what we're trying to build now. And so I know that stewardship has felt regret about this, the finance team has felt regret about all of this, the staff of course feels it because we're in the midst of it. But we really need the community as a whole to take this on with us. This is a collective effort. So I don't expect the world to change first year with the stewardship campaign with Mark, but I do anticipate that there'll be some traction. I do know that one of the deficits that we have had with doing stewardship the way that we have, it allowed us to have a very passive approach to it. It allowed people to not have to respond. If we get back to a place where it's all hands on deck, it's 8 weeks of nothing but stewardship, celebration, everywhere you turn, we're gonna have goal setting, we're gonna have thermometers, we're gonna have whatever we need to let people know where we are. And we're gonna need people in the doors, we're gonna need people to actually read their communications, we're gonna need people to show up. So I know that I can't just give y'all a magic answer and say, we'll get through this year and everything will be fine because we have Mark. We really don't know. We really don't know. But I do know that we can all try together. So I hope that everybody hears the message of it's not just on one particular area, it's on all of us. This community is self-sustaining. Money doesn't fall in the sky. The people within these walls help make this place go. And so if we want to see better numbers, we all gotta give. We all gotta participate and not necessarily make the connection here transaction. Make it because it had an impact on your life and you wanna see it here when you leave so that the next people who come to it have that same impact on their lives too.
Say that.
I raised my hand to say a lot of that. I just want to reiterate that the stewardship campaign, one of our first things that we're going to do in August is bring together people from stewardship, people from the board, from other key areas to really kick off and determine what our stewardship theme is. Our campaign, look at programming ideas. We're not putting it all on Mark. Mark would not be able to do that for us. That's not what his services are. This is really our responsibility. And one of the things I just want to drive home is that I am embarrassed that we are cutting our contribution to the UUA. That for our congregation is an embarrassment. We need to be a beacon. We are one of the 2 UU congregations in Charlotte. We are a big congregation. That means a lot in the state of North Carolina. It means a lot for the South. We should be able to contribute a fair share to the UUA. The fact that we have to cut that, like Lisa has said, we can't do this and we cannot continue to pass deficit budgets. Like Barry's been pointing out with his question, is how much longer can we get by doing that? We can't. And the answer is not going to come from the outside. It's not going to come from one area of the congregation. I don't think it's going to come from cutting much more because there's not much more to cut. We cannot cut staff. We already operate with half of the staff of a congregation our size. And we're already too staff heavy in how we operate. So if that's one of the consistent concerns is that staff is too involved here, or staff is making too many decisions, then we can't also want to cut staff and cut staff. Our option is to rely on the giving of the congregation. That's how we get through this. And stewardship, the stewardship campaign, I'm really looking forward to it. I'm going to address it when I talk later, but this is a tremendous opportunity for us, and I hope that this time next year, this can be a much more joyful conversation. But it's not on Mark's shoulders, that's for sure. It's on ours, what we do right now, and we definitely can turn this around. We've got more resources than we think.
There was a hand and then there was a hand. There's not.
I was wondering if it's feasible or wise to be able to increase the pledge specifically to the UUA. And individuals can say, I'm gonna give $50 a month for the UUA.
We're thinking of, yeah, we're figuring out ways that we can still make up a little bit this year through special giving, but we want to be able to do it from our budget, which is custom.
Obviously, this is a tough budget. Nobody likes to see a deficit budget. Nobody likes to see the UUA contribution lowered. But can you help us understand what voting against this budget would mean? Like, what happens if it doesn't pass?
If it doesn't pass, we'll have to go back to the drawing board and attempt to get one that does pass. But if we don't have a budget in place for next year, then spending stops. And the only way to change this budget at this point is to cut staff. And so that would be, yeah. I don't want it to feel as if it's approve this budget so we don't cut staff. I want everybody to feel like their voice is gonna be heard. I want everybody to help us think through it because this is your budget. And if there are some hesitations, we would like to know that. And we would like to be able to respond accordingly. But we don't have an expense problem. It is an income problem.
I'd like to change the focus a little bit from pledges to membership. And I know personally that older members do not have the income that younger working members have. We need to recruit, and it's on us to bring a guest at least once a quarter to get membership up, and particularly young people who are still working.
Does anybody know how much it actually costs per member to keep this place going if we had a non-deficit budget?
It was about, I won't say per member, but, and I don't like using this word, household or unit. About 2,200.
Well, if you use the word unit, you're comparing possibly 2 people to 1 person. So I would like to see that information, rethought per member, because a single person, I don't think should be expected to pay the same as a couple, just because they're living in the same house if they're both members. And I know it's, people have different incomes, but I just don't think this unit gives us a real idea of what it costs per person, per member, in terms of pledges and that sort of thing.
It occurs to me that since I've been a member, nobody's asked me, we came from a very, moving and shaking UU community, and nobody's ever asked me what we did there that really made a difference financially. And I'm not sure who I'm to talk to, but I have lots of ideas. And so I think perhaps sometimes we just leave it to committees or boards and are not really reaching out to a lot of us that have a lot of good ideas. We're going to ask you to join us.
Val has ideas.
I was just curious, where are our membership numbers standing
about 750 or something. So
The highest membership total I've seen since I've been here is 689. And I think we're about 5.
Yeah, we're on 509.
Yeah.
So a lot of the source of the revenue issue is dropping membership? Or is it not, people not?
It's,
being here?
people don't respond to the pledge campaign. You would be surprised how many responders we get. Now, let me just be clear, just because you don't respond, doesn't mean you aren't pledging, but we don't hear from you, which is the opportunity to assess your pledge or potentially increase your pledge. And of course, the cost of living has, risen dramatically since then. We also have lost members due to just the pandemic had people moving away, people were disconnected. We also lost 2 ministers in one congregational year. So there have been a lot of things that have happened that has contributed to our member attrition. We still do have new members coming in, but of course, just any general year we'll have members go away, but just the last maybe 4 or 5 years, it's been a little while.
Yeah, no, I was just curious about that, and I will say, when I moved to this congregation, I was startled by the passivity of the stewardship campaigns. So I'm glad here we're gonna be more active.
Yeah. Jerry down here. Jerry.
Just a quick question about the UUA. Is that under denominations up there, or where does it show we're not?
It's under the denomination. Our current year contribution is $31,000, and so the proposed budget has a $10,000. So it's decreasing by $21,000.
So you would make a contribution, but you wouldn't meet.
We would meet the $31,000. Yeah.
Just another thing to add, based on some things that have been asked, I think it would be really important for us to understand that even with this new stewardship campaign, what I hope that it is not, is just like, let's everyone pledge more, how much do we need to pledge? This is an opportunity to do something much deeper, because there are real things to address, like the fact that the cost of living is higher, people are making less, people in general cannot pledge as much as they once did, people are not contributing to civic organizations. There are several cultural things happening that we can't just snap our fingers and say it's not happening. So I think it's up to us to figure out what is a new way forward. What are the new ways congregations are funding their faith communities, or people are funding their civic organizations, and no one's giving us that information. We have to figure it out. So over the years, it won't just be the stewardship campaign that starts sometime in March and ends sometime in April. This will be all year long. There will be opportunities for people to come together with ideas, with what they have seen work or what they are concerned about. So we want it to be very holistic and not just, we're going to ask you to give a whole lot more in this concentrated period of time. We really wanted to have depth and to be able to start addressing these issues that every congregation across the United States is addressing right now, which is all of these cultural issues, generational issues, and the fact that the American people cannot afford what we once could, and our organizations are struggling because of it. So we're not alone in this, and it's going to take a lot more, I hope that it's a lot more depth, and that we do provide, like you were saying, the opportunities to bring people together, to actually dig in and start working towards some new understandings of moving forward.
There's someone.
I just wanted to say, in looking, I know in the budget, with any organization, often the personnel costs and the employees are the greatest expense. But as we talk about things like increases in the cost of living, we know that the cost of labor does not keep up and it does not move at the same rate. So even though we are feeling that, I just want to remind everybody that I very much appreciate what the staff here does. And when we talk about, the budget, and last year I sat here and I know there were no increases. So to hear even a nominal increase for some to get them to that UU standard of living, I just want to say, I think that increases in taking care of the staff is really important to what we get here as participants of this community. So.
far as deficit budgeting is concerned, you have deficit budgets as long as you tolerate deficit budgets. But when you make changes on very short notice to reduce spending, you can also do damage and you don't maybe make smart choices. So maybe connecting the dots with the whole community about the income and expense, the cost of the programming we value, the things we want to do will be helpful. But if we said by X days we will not do deficit budgeting, that would be an aspirational goal that we may want to think of, or make the congregation feel more comfortable.
I do want to add in also that it's my understanding that a congregation of our size, we have one of the smallest staffs in the UUA community with a congregation of our size. We're understaffed.
So this is John Burns. I'm the chair of the finance team. So I will stay after the meeting and talk with anyone who would like to talk more about this now. If you'd like to talk later, I'm happy. There's lots of other things to share. But unless no one else has any questions, I'd like to call the question because we've been at this for 45 minutes and we could go on for, I know there's other things we want to get through. So I'd respectfully like to either see if we're ready to have our vote or see if people are done with questions. But I appreciate the community engagement, but we've got a long list of things to get through.
If there's no more questions, you can mark your ballot with your vote on the approval or not of the proposed 24-25 budget, and then hold on to your ballots at this time. Thank you, everyone, for your questions, because it shows that you care, and that is meaningful. Okay. Ellen Holliday, who serves as the chair of our Memorial Endowment Trust, will announce recipients of this year's MET grants.
So good afternoon, Ellen Holiday, pronouns for she, her.
A little closer to my.
Like right here?
Yeah.
All right. Just make sure, can you put the slides up? I'll go ahead and start talking. So just a quick thing on what is the Memorial Endowment Trust. We may have some new members here. And it is a lasting fund that helps both our current members and really think about it too as future members, future generations to have a progressive community to be part of. And many of you sitting in this audience have made gifts, either in memory of someone that you care very much and to put that out in this congregation, or you have made it to honor staff and other volunteers here. The majority of the donations that we get come from requests from wills, from insurance, retirement accounts, estate planning, and we got two very nice requests this year from the Becky Whittington family and the Zeke Ford family. And so we're very appreciative that people want to honor the UUCC as they pass on. But our assets are managed by the UUA, another thing that the UUA does for us, and they're professionally managed that way. And so I've talked about what you've given to the Memorial Endowment Trust, but what have you given to the congregation? Next one. So this is the end of grant season, and we had some great grants this year. And so a team, a group, a staff member fill out an application, and it's very thorough what they have to fill out. There's a set of criteria, and then the board meets and votes on these proposals. And so how we get the funds is we take 5% of the average, the monthly average over the last 3 years, which helps deal with some of the ups and downs of the market. And this year we had a little over 48,000 that we had to be able to distribute via grants. And just, how many of you were at the Memorial Garden reception last weekend? A number of you. It was lovely. And I really applaud the work of the Memorial Garden team as well as how they partnered with the gardening group. And that was a grant I met. And then as I look around and look at the playgrounds on the fences, which we were required to do by state law, the signage on the buildings so people can recognize who we are, the fire pit, and then every time when it rains and I am standing at the front door trying to figure out what the heck is my code, is it town or star? I'm so grateful for the awning over it. And so let's take a look at the ones for 2025, 26. And a big thank you to all of you who contributed in terms of filling out these applications. They are lengthy, but they really tell us the story of what it is that you need. And so the first one is a digital piano and dolly to move it from back and forth from Freeman Hall to the Priestley room. The other one is very old and needed tuning. The 3 ovens in the kitchen, and any of you who worked in the kitchen, you know we need new ovens. Stewardship consultation, you experienced Mark a few weekends ago, and he had a lot of ideas. He spent a lot of time with us. The Rise Against Hunger meal packing. That is for a social justice effort that will involve people in the community here in Charleston. Painting the main office. Hopefully you've seen Reverend Amanda's office, which looks terrific. And we want the other office areas to be able to also have a new look. The Leadership Development Weekend, many of you participated last year, and Reverend Jake Morrill, who was, very much here at Reverend Amanda's installation, will be doing this again, either in late summer or early fall. It's part 2. And then lastly is the screening of a documentary called The Binding Truth. It's a story of a white man and a black man who discover their common ancestral journey or history, and it takes place in Charlotte. So thank you very much for your support for the lasting legacy that we're providing for the UUCC.
Does anyone have questions for Emma? You're a free woman. As many of you know, the Board of Trustees is a 9-person board serving the UUCC. Each board member serves a 3-year term, and I'd like to recognize this year's brilliant Board of Trustees recruiting team and introduce to you the new candidates. Before we vote, join me in offering gratitude for an often challenging job to the 3 members of that team. Would those of you please stand if you are here and able? Denise Weldon, their leader, Ken Smalley, and Terry Draper.
It's Denise Weldon Clark. Legally, that's my name.
And fearlessly.
Denise Weldon Clark is my legal name.
Denise Weldon Clark.
Thank you.
Of course. Thanks, Denise. There are 3 seats on the Board of Trustees opening for the 25-26 year, and the recruiting team has brought us 3 candidates to replace those. They are Mary Bruce, Melanie Greeley, and Melissa Shrew. Stand, please. At this time, please mark your ballot for up to 3 of these 3 listed board candidates. Should be easy. We're excited about these candidates. They really did a great job in recruiting this year. All right, Bob. Mr. Bylaws.
I know this is the event you all been waiting for. Good afternoon, I'm Bob Coleman, and my pronouns are he and him. And I also want to thank Vivian Brenner and Gwen Mobius who worked with me this past year, reading again, rereading was charged with reviewing the bylaws every 5 years. And we actually started that a little bit last year, if you remember. We revised the bylaws to allow absentee voting in certain circumstances, for example, as this meeting. But the entire document needed to be reviewed this year, and so that's what we did during that time. The board feels that the changes we are proposing this year are not particularly substantive or dramatic. There's no Article 2 issues here. Some changes we are recommending are stylistic. Some are to codify what we started doing last year. Some deal with punctuation. And some are for consistency among the various articles of the bylaws. You find with the new bylaw revisions that if you change something here, it might cause you to change something else somewhere else. So you have to kind of look at it as a whole. Now, how I'll proceed here is I will present proposed changes one at a time, explain the reasoning behind them, and ask if there are any questions. Once we've completed looking at all of them, it will be time to vote. Now, the board unanimously voted to accept these revisions and is presenting them as a package for your approval or rejection. So it's going to be an up or down vote for the entire document. So y'all ready? So in the words of Betty Davis in All About Eve, fasten your seatbelts, it's going to be a bumpy ride. So slide 1. Okay, the changes are going to be in red, and you're going to see some red that's crossed through, shows what we dropped and what we're proposing to add. Now, this one's pretty straightforward. We removed the date that's there on the right. We're not even sure what that date was. But what will happen is, once if we approve the proposed changes this year, then that date will appear at the bottom of the heading there. Okay? The other thing to call your attention to is we added the word and values. So we talk about principles and values. Now, there was a question we had in one of our open meetings about why we're doing that. Well, this congregation voted 8% to approve the change in Article 2 from principles to values. But the principles are still valid. If you go to the UUA website, they talk about the principles. It's there. So it's not like a forbidden term or forbidden concept. So basically, we added and values. We didn't want to reignite the Article 2 wars. Okay, by dropping off principles, because they're still valid. So that's why we did that. So are there any questions at all about that change? Okay, let's go to slide 2. Okay, the slide, this is just an example of the red M's. If you look through the document, you're going to see lots of capital red M's and some lowercase red M's. What in the world is that about? Well, as we read through the document, we realized the term membership was used in 2 different ways. Sometimes it meant the entire group, entire body, and sometimes it meant membership on a committee or on the board, for example. And what we noticed was a pattern that was, when they were talking about the entire body, they capitalized the M. Okay? But we found they didn't do that consistently. We also found when they talked about membership like on a committee, sometimes they used a capital M, and sometimes they did a lowercase m. So what we decided was, in the case when we're talking about the entire group, it'll be a capital. And when we're talking about part like on a committee, it'll be a lowercase. So I just want to point that out. If you wonder, I had one person say, why are all these M's red? But that was a stylistic decision we made. So any questions on that?
Can you put the mic more in front of you?
Sure, sorry.
There you go.
Yeah. Slide number 3 is what we're doing there is basically codifying an interpretation we made last year to count virtual attendance in the quorum count. Okay, we just started that practice, but we wanted to actually put it in the bylaws. And also to note that absentee ballots do not count in determining the quorum. It's either you have to be in person or virtually to attend to be able to count the quorum. Any questions about that? Well, I'm moving right along here. Good deal. Slide number 4 is a punctuation change. There was a comma after promulgate, and replaced the period after comma on NCGS. It just read weird when we read it, it didn't make sense, but when we changed the punctuation, and now it is legalese, we didn't change any of that. But it made sense after we had changed the punctuation. So that's pretty straightforward. Any questions about that? Okay, let's go to number 5. Now this is probably the biggest change. When we were in, it also impacts another section we'll talk about in a second, but it has to do with the dismissal of a member of the board. And when we read through the document, we noticed that to dismiss a member of the board, you needed a 3/4 vote, or 2/3 vote, excuse me. But to remove a minister, you needed a 50% vote. Okay? And we thought, well, that's not going to seem right. So we did some research. And what we found is, and we looked at different congregations, and we looked at the EUA to see what they said about this. And basically what they recommended for the dismissal of a minister is a 50% vote. Now, not all the churches talk about removing a board member, but we thought it made sense that it should be 50% too. You know, it should be harder to remove a board member than it is to remove a minister. Now, I'll also say that the chances of something like this happening are highly remote. More than likely, if there was some disturbance in the congregation, that decision would be made before it ever came to a vote. Okay? But it has to be in there just in the event that somebody was not, you know, like if 5 people came up to me and said, "We don't like you, get down," I'd leave, that'd be fine with me. We also changed it to reflect, to make it more consistent with Article 8, Section 4, in terms of how it reads. And we're going to see that in a second. That has to do with the dismissal of the minister. It also clarifies that only those members who are eligible to vote are permitted to do so. In other words, you have to be a member at least 3 months before you can vote on anything. We'll make sure that was clear. And we also wanted to note that we felt that the removal of a minister or a trustee is a very serious thing to do. In the case of a minister, it has to do with their reputation, it has to do with their ability to get reemployment. So we don't want absentee votes on that. We felt that if this was going to come to a vote, you needed to be here, okay, to hear the discussion back and forth. And so what we're saying is you have to be here either in person or virtually to vote to remove a board member or a minister, okay? And we don't say absentee ballots are allowed, okay? Only in person or virtually. And I think that's it. Any questions?
Nobody get any ideas?
Believe me.
Okay, then let's go to the next slide. You guys are great, man. I'm loving this. Thank you. The next slide, we felt that this has to do with the committee that selects the minister, goes to the minister search, and we felt that board members should not be a member of that. We felt that there should be a degree of separation between the board and the committee. And this past time, when we did it, we had a board member that kind of acted as a conduit, that would talk to the committee and they'd let us know what was going on, but we weren't actively involved in that. And so we felt like it was necessary to go ahead and state that, so that in the future, we hope it's 20, 30 years down the road, when we have to select a new minister, that the board would know that they're not going to have a direct representation on the board. Any questions? Okay, next slide. Yeah, this has to do with the removal of the minister. Again, it clarifies that only those members who are eligible to vote are permitted to do so, and that only voting in person or virtually will be counted toward the meeting. Okay. Any questions on that? Okay, well, just 2 more, guys. Next slide. Okay, this makes it, this particular section makes it consistent with Article 4, meetings and membership, Section 1, meetings, times and places, and with Article 11, which is bylaws, procedures, Section 3, which requires a 2/3 vote to amend bylaws, and it requires 10% of membership This has to do with the board has the authority to interpret the bylaws, which is what we did last year. Okay, we decided that in person and virtually, okay? But the congregation has a right to override that decision if they want to. And to do that requires a special meeting. So we just made it consistent with what it takes to actually have a regular meeting of the congregation. Somebody's talking to me. Any questions on this? Straightforward. Okay, and then finally, the last slide, it allows for absentee voting. Okay, it's simply one other area where they add the ability to absentee vote. Okay, any questions on any of that? God, you guys have been a wonderful audience. Again, it's either voting for the entire document or you voted against the entire document.
I just want to be
All right. I know we want to get out of here, but if y'all will indulge me briefly. Beloved community, it is hard to believe it was 3 years ago I was elected here at this meeting to serve on the UC Board of Trustees. Some of you may remember that meeting. I had no idea what I was stepping into. Did we, Shannon? And it was only a year ago I stood here hopefully holding space for us to navigate the Article 2 challenges and all that entailed. And I still love the principles, and I still agree with love at the center. I was so determined about what I imagined I could bring to this community. I am not sure how successful I have been. I am ever a student in my life in all spaces. I know I often bring a different perspective with the lens offered by all my identities, economic, cultural, broke-ass, currently unemployed, queer, Puerto Rican, Jew, woman, etc. And now my time is up. It's funny, so many folks have asked me in the past few weeks, aren't you so glad to be done? And well, not really. It's been a pleasure and an honor to serve my community at this exciting time. There's so much I feel I left unfinished or that I never even got to. And I'll miss seeing and communing with these fabulous folks on the board regularly. Great gratitude to you all. And that includes you wherever you are, my former co-chair, Kurt Merkel. And great gratitude to you, my community. I am confident we can grow this community and flourish. I believe we are ready for the changes that will require. I've said this here before, it's 2025, y'all. I do believe wholeheartedly it is time in our community for shared ministry and that work amongst us. From a teacher of mine, Buddhist Reverend Angel Kiddo Williams, she said, as powerfully painful as this may be, with all due respect to Gandhi, we can no longer afford to just be the change. We actually have to be the transformation, which is to say we have to transcend the form, the construct that we find ourselves in. Okay. Sorry, it's hard to imagine I was ever a legal editor, proofreader, and vigilant with a red pencil, but I was. If you're wondering what the board even did this year, here's some stuff. We assisted the interim process in the settled minister search team. We finalized and approved the right relations policy. We established the right relations team. We began the ends monitoring work. We invited and hosted Reverend Jake Morrill for our successful leadership retreat prior to Reverend Amanda's arrival. We facilitated 2 congregational meetings where bylaws amendments were considered and or adopted. We welcomed and supported our new senior minister, Reverend Amanda Witherspoon, and we supported stewardship in the work with consultant Mark Ewert, and yes, his recommendations will be coming, for sure.
Well, to follow up on what Michael just said, these are some of the things we're looking at for the coming year. First of all, Mark Ewart and his recommendations, the board will be directly involved in the whole change in the stewardship process. In fact, Amanda has already called for a meeting on August the 3rd to begin that process, so the board will be involved with a bunch of other people. The board will be directly involved. We will also continue to monitor our end statements. We started with end number 1, and then I think about 3 or 4 weeks ago, we began looking at ends 3 and 5, so we'll begin the process in the fall of continuing that, and then hopefully in the spring finish up with that process. While we're doing that, we're going to be looking at the vision statement in some way, because the vision statement informs the ends. And so if we make any changes in the end statement, I think that implies that we need to look at the vision statement too. Now, I was part of the vision team that developed the current statement, and that was a 2-year process. I don't know how it will be this time, but I think we do need. I think it is time to begin looking at the vision statement as it was, because it's been what 9 years now since we've had that. And also, Jake Morrill will be here, and write this down. He's going to be here the weekend of October 3rd through the 5th. October 3rd through the 5th, that's a Friday through a Sunday. And he's going to have a follow-up to the leadership workshop that he did last year. It's open to everybody. It's not just a board thing or a committee chair thing. It's open to anybody who wants to come. And there will be some word forthcoming in more detail about it. But it will be October 3rd through the 5th, which is a Friday through a Sunday. Okay? So that's just some of the things we're looking at. And we're going to meet as a new board in August to actually sit down and formulate our goals for the coming year. And we'll let you know what those are once we're done with that process. So any questions at all? Okay, I think it's going to be a very busy year. Before I leave, since I have charge of the pulpit here, I want to say some thanks. First, I want to thank Mary Bruce, Tony Greeley, and Melissa Stroop for agreeing to serve on the board for the next 3 years. Your dedication and commitment to the congregation is greatly appreciated. I would also like to give a shout out to Kathleen Carpenter and Dave Dixon, who were willingly volunteered to serve as officers next year. Kathleen will serve as co-chair with me, and Dave will serve as board secretary. Many thanks, guys. And I want to give a very special thanks to Michael Amy, Shannon Maples, and Lori Reed for your 3 years of outstanding service on the board. Being a board member involves a tremendous commitment of time and energy, especially over these last several years of the loss of 2 ministers, the disruption caused by the COVID pandemic, and the 2-year process of selecting a new minister. It is because of members like these 3 that we not only survived these events, but are now looking at a bright new future for the UUCC community. It has been a real pleasure and honor serving with all 3 of you. In addition, Shannon served for 2 years as board secretary. Now, keeping 9 UUs on task is tantamount to herding a bunch of cats and equally as pleasant. But Shannon, you accomplished the virtually impossible. You maintained your sunny disposition and good-natured demeanor through it all, in spite of how some of us, not me, of course, but some of us may have vexed you in the process. I extend our heartfelt thanks, Shannon, for being our kind, caring, and tolerant wrangler. And finally, one of the real benefits of serving on the board is the opportunity to develop a close relationship with someone you might not have otherwise gotten to know. And that certainly has been the case for Michael and me. Well, at first glance, we might appear to be the UU version of the odd couple. I think it's safe to say that over the past year, we have developed a deep and abiding friendship. Michael, your leadership of the board has been nothing short of exemplary. You brought to it the fierce fire of commitment, and a fervent dedication that has been a true inspiration not only to me, but to all your other colleagues on the board as well. These past years of turmoil, of uncertainty, of doubt have not been easy on any of us, but you in particular have remained steadfast and optimistic through it all. I admire your remarkable calm, your empathy, your ability to listen deeply without judgment. That is a real tribute to your kind and compassionate heart. So Michael, as you lead the board, take with you our enduring admiration for all you have done and our love for who you are. While I have no doubt that you will become involved in other areas of service, our beloved community, your presence on the board will sorely be missed by all of us.
I'd now like to invite Kathleen Carpenter to share information about our ends monitoring.
Hi, I'm Kathleen Carpenter, and my pronouns are she, her. And this year I had the privilege of serving on our board's monitoring subcommittee along with Joe Topp, Shannon Maples, and Lori Reed in the back, who are going to come up here if there are any questions. I think most of you in here attended one of our listening sessions. Is that correct? Can you raise your hand if you did? Okay, at least half of, more than half of you did. Okay, I hope you know this, but just in case you don't, because there did tend to be some confusion over what is the board's responsibilities, what is the minister's responsibilities, and so I want to clarify that the board, it's our responsibility to be checking in with you, the congregation, on how we're doing regarding our guiding statements. And those guiding statements are our vision and our mission, and then the ends to which we aspire. Okay? Hopefully that all means something to you. I can tell you that our vision and mission and ends probably all need to be reevaluated and rewritten because it's been a long time. But this year we decided we really needed to start doing some monitoring of those ends to see how we were doing. Not to find out necessarily what we were doing wrong, but how we could do better. And so as Michael or Bob, one or the other, was referencing the monitoring work we were doing, we've already talked about the first end statement, which is up on the screen behind me. And what we did in order to get the input from you, the congregation, who is we serve you sitting out there. What we wanted to do was hear from you these three questions about this first ends statement.
Go back.
Okay, well, maybe not. So, yeah, there we go. So what are we doing well? What do you hope for that it's not happening? And what barriers exist for this part of our vision? Again, this was just for that first end statement. So what I wanted to do, first I need to acknowledge, somebody brought this up earlier. You people who are in this room care enough to do things like come to a listening session. There's a lot of people who have drifted over the past few years. We did not hear from them. It is one of our goals next year to reach out more to the people who have drifted and re-engage them if possible. So I wanted to real quickly go over the feedback that we received, and I want you to know that as a member of the board, all of this board for next year, including those three who just got elected, we are committed to taking this information and helping us make this a better congregation, okay? We're not just going to stick this information, in the proverbial drawer and forget about it. We are going to be using this to guide us. So, next slide. I forgot that I don't have them written out, so I'm going to have to look at the slide. Give me a second here. So what we did under the amazing Shannon's skill set is we divided these up so that the responses you see up here are in direct relation to what the end statement is all about. So there's the end statement. And so this is the feedback we received from many of you, not just one person, but many of you, is that the ends are aspirational. So it'd be more accurate to say we aspire to, or we seek to achieve these. Some people said they were not comfortable with calling us a religious community and we prefer spiritual community. And a couple of members said they weren't comfortable with the use of the word loving in that end statement. And again, this is nothing endorsed by the board or anything. This is your feedback. Okay, next slide, please. So we asked the question, what makes you feel connected to each other? And what we heard back were small group opportunities were probably the key thing. And so that's just some of the groups that were suggested or people said this has made me feel welcome. Group social justice activities was another one, which is basically sort of the same thing with a focus. It was things like rooming in or making sandwiches, Operation Sandwich, where you're with people and you have a common goal, and so you're talking while you're working. And then hearing personal stories. We've heard a lot of people here say, we love having people in the pulpit, lay people, sharing their personal stories. And like Credo. So those were all ways that people felt connected. Next slide. How can we extend and deepen our connections beyond what we're doing presently? So we had lots of great ideas suggested for us. More adult education offerings, a wider variety of lay leaders, again, sharing their personal stories, and then advertising our affinity groups. The affinity groups include things like our walking group, our hiking group, our humanist group, Lunar Rising. All of those are affinity groups. Next slide. Okay, group activities formation that members, not just staff, are allowed to initiate. We heard a lot of people saying we don't feel empowered to suggest things that can be done because staff is making all the decisions. I'm sure staff would love to hear more ideas, but we need to make it easier for people to get their ideas out there. Build awareness, inclusivity, and general support for the disabled, the differently able, and the neurodivergent members of our congregation. And have a designated, comfortable area to attend service with children. As someone who was involved in this about, I don't know how long ago it was, that's what Bernstein was supposed to be. We had set up toys and everything in there so that when the children, they didn't want to be over in the religious education program, or it was an intergen and they just needed to be somewhere else, that's the place they could go and a parent could still watch the service. So I'm hoping we can get back to that concept. Next slide. Enhance intergenerational activities and opportunities and ways to connect. We've heard that from a lot of people too, and we've heard that for a long time. We want to get to know the youth and the children of this congregation. How do you bridge that gap? It's a hard thing, and we really need to commit to it. Enhance discussion opportunities during community Sundays, both across the generations and in adult-oriented offerings. Next slide. Finally, how do we deepen our connections, improve and expand our ongoing communication? We heard many, many times, I didn't know about that. There's not a good way to communicate. And somebody said at one of our gatherings, communication is the biggest problem for any organization like ours. It's just so hard, and we are so bombarded with information every day. And then again, there were also people who said, it's out there, if you really want to know, can you at least try to find it before you were criticizing the fact that it wasn't out there. So, the yin and the yang of communication. The next question that has to do with that first is, next slide. How well are we welcoming visitors and retaining our membership? We need to engage new members more quickly and help connect new with older members. And I think that older members doesn't necessarily mean older members, but with more seasoned members. Coffee hour, as we all know, you walk in that room and you go towards someone you know, right? That's what we do. We need to step outside of that and look for people who are wearing those name tags that say they're visitors. Welcome, it's nothing worse than coming to visit. I'm sorry, getting on my grandstand. And some participants also indicated a desire for more volunteer opportunities. Yes, bring it on, people. We want volunteers. So we're going to try to make it, along with staff. They want volunteers too, believe me. So we're going to try to make that happen. Okay, next slide. Members are not aware of a clear welcome-in process nor exit process. We heard from several people that they knew of people who left and were never really asked, why did you leave? We heard people who were new saying they never really got a good orientation session. Whether or not that's actually offered, that was the perception of people who spoke out, that we need to improve those processes. Next slide. Okay, so joy, because that is part of our first end statement. Members indicated that now more than ever, we really need opportunities for joy. Participants also see an opening to expand into the larger community. You know that whole Universalist thing about hiding your light underneath a bushel? We have a message for the larger Charlotte community. We need to get them in here so they can hear it. Whoever said bring a friend, bring a friend, bring a community, bring everybody. We got a great message. And of course, we had a lot of people say when it comes to joy, Reverend Amanda is bringing a lot of that. And when I hear people say, I'm not coming because it's all about get justice, get in there, get things done, and say, I want community, they haven't heard Reverend Amanda. Oh my gosh, she is so wonderful about that. So please share that when people complain that we are not providing that loving spiritual community. And if you still think we're not, let us know. Slide 2. We had several people say they really enjoyed family fun nights. And we had someone else say, can we bring back some of those really fun things we did, like when Jay would have people doing the whole carnival thing. John, you were a part of that here in the service, follies, things like that. And it sounds like we are going to start doing more of those things. Next slide. How are we doing with listening and respecting each other, which is the second part of the first end statement? Many people said they do feel heard and respected here. And within small groups, they say that they're really able to share and feel listened to. Another plus for small groups. Several participants felt that the Article 2 discussion that we had last year was not really handled as well as it could have been. Comments were mainly around the Facebook community. We have definite room for growth as regards specifically disagreeing with one another. And we also need to understand that being heard does not necessarily mean people agree with you. And I should say we now have a right relations team, which is also working on that kind of work. Hopefully you know about that. Next up, next slide. How are we doing about listening and respecting? Some participants feel that our model of policy governance is hindering member involvement with its emphasis on staff empowerment. Several mentioned their hope that shared ministry could help with that. There is a need for the board to do a better job in connecting with the community and sharing the work that we do. And I can only speak for myself, but I think I speak for the rest of the board, are committed to doing that. So please, do ask us questions. Don't confuse our job with the staff's job. But one of our jobs is, if you have a question, we will be glad to talk to you about whatever that question is. It might be that we then say, go talk to Reverend Amanda, but we're always glad to talk with anybody. Next slide. Both the board and staff could improve our communications about our respective areas of responsibilities, and we're going to be working on that, because I know it's confusing. So also, some of you may have picked up these sheets. So what we did is, a lot of what we heard from you in the listening sessions didn't really fit into the ends number one, like each of these fell under a category about the ends. And it fell under things like what's our governance? Do we really like policy governance? What do we think about how the congregation is doing in other areas? So I want you, if you want more information, or you're sitting out there right now and you're saying, they didn't capture my comment. My comment was important. It's probably in there because we couldn't get everything up here. So that's, if you want to read through those, it's really fun. Take it with you if you want. I think that's it. That is it. Okay. So, thank you, everybody. Yes. So, you can read that. In the coming weeks and months, our subcommittee will share detailed feedback with the coordinating team for consideration in their ongoing work, because while we are looking at the ends, they are looking at the means for achieving the ends. So, we will be discussing them, what you told
Catherine?
Is this the information you received, is it available in a more quantitative metric? Like where we see like percentages, I noticed some of it was like contradictory, so it'd be interesting to see like, was it like 20% or 80% or 50-50?
It was very qualitative. I would say most of the comments we received, there's several people here, several people there, so we didn't do a count of that. The annual report does have some numbers around how many people we reached and how many groups we connected with, but that's all we've done with that.
And this is a follow-up, not really a question, more of a comment, but like I know I couldn't have made it to a lot of the sessions, and I remember years ago there used to be like a survey that was sent out that covered a lot of this. I was just hoping that maybe going forward that could also be a way to get feedback, so those that can't attend these meetings could have participated.
Thank you, that's good feedback. We received a list from Kelly Green of the people that she had not seen here in a while who we thought we may not have been able to reach through our session, so we did email a survey to them. We received, I think, 5 responses through that. There were hundreds of people on that list. So we're not sure how likely we are to get responses from surveys, but we are thinking about the board next year. I won't be there. The next year's board is thinking about how to best reach more people, and so the surveys are things that we've discussed, and we'll take that into consideration.
Those are the ideas and suggestions.
Yeah. Any other questions?
In many earth-based traditions, raising energy, often done within a ritual circle, is a crucial part of magical workings. This process, sometimes referred to as raising the cone of power, involves concentrating the collective energy of a group and channeling it for a specific purpose. This energy is often visualized as a cone of light or power extending upwards and outward, representing the intention of the ritual. I can't imagine if you were here, you weren't vibrating with that raised energy created by Reverend Amanda and her caring and captivating colleagues last Saturday and into the week. It was a beautiful installation and momentous moment for our community. So now, freshly installed after a congregational year of service, I'd like to invite our Reverend Amanda, ready to join us in challenging that energy to present.
Don't worry, y'all. This ain't gonna last long. Here towards the end of this annual meeting, I thought it was fitting that I share some thoughts as we wrap up this year, which is, of course, my first year as your settled minister, which is hard to believe. But it isn't just my first year as your settled minister, it's our first year of this continued shared ministry. Shared ministry, we've heard a lot about it today. It's this ongoing task and commitment that we make to this congregation and that we make to each other. This community of faith is not just the responsibility of one person or of one group or of some proclamation on high, but it is a responsibility that rests with each and every one of us. With these few moments of address, I want to share with you what I've experienced this year and what I'm excited about in the year to come. First and foremost, this is a community of resilience, something that I think often goes unspoken. This congregation has gone through so much change, and with it, uncertainty over the last several years, transitioning from a long-term ministry with the added complications of a pandemic. It's nothing small nor insignificant. In so many ways, the task at hand was to see it through, to get to and through the next thing, and then the next, and the next. And that's not always the most uplifting or inspiring thing, and it's not necessarily exciting or riveting work, but you stuck it out. If you're here or watching in this moment, that means that you saw it through. You held to the promise, and most importantly, you held to one another. Although we've moved into this new ministry now, we'll still need that same sense of tenacity, but not from a place of survival, but from a place of joy and of thriving. Another thing I've noticed is how vital it is that we create spaces together to celebrate. I think of the climate justice revival and, of course, the installation as we've mentioned. These are just a couple of things, but these were events that required a ton of work, a ton of preparation, and a lot of hands on deck, but these were also times that we shined, where we lived into the best of who we are. These were times of joy and inspiration, and it was also just fun. I was told by one of my colleagues that that was the best installation they had been to, and they had been to a lot. Another overhearing from another colleague was that set the bar for installations moving forward. Now that's a big deal, and that's not just because of one or two of us. It's because we all came together, we all committed together. So my deep hope is that we continue to prioritize relationality, whether that be in our meetings, our social gatherings, or on Sunday morning. If you're not lighting a chalice before you do the work in your meeting, start lighting a chalice. If you're not checking in with each other before you get into whatever you're about to do, check in with each other. Let's prioritize relationships. We hold to the purpose and the importance of what it means to be a faith community when we do so and we lead from our heart. Something I'm excited about, truly excited about, is our upcoming transition back to an annual stewardship campaign. This transition will likely define the upcoming congregational year, and I hope that we can do it upright. Not just so that we can repair our budget, but also so that we can do it in style, to have some fun with it. I think this is a tremendous opportunity to get clear about who we are and who we want to be. Just like all of the other major events, we're going to need everyone involved in this, and not just for a one-time thing, but all the ways that this transition is going to impact us. And lastly, I'll say this. This is a hard-working congregation. From the staff to the lay leadership, all the teams and groups, all the about this congregation, there is plenty of work happening all the time. But something I want us to think about over the next year is how we pull all of this work together. What does cohesion look like in this space? And what is our collective identity? As we grow, which we will and we are, and as we put ourselves more out there, which we will and we are, it will be crucial for us to understand ourselves. The question isn't what is the UUCC, but who is the UUCC? Who are we beyond what we do and what we produce? Why are we here? And who do we serve? These are deep questions of faith. And this is what we'll continue to explore as we move into this next chapter. Folks, the word is abundance. I want so much abundance that it spills out. Yes, we want to bring people in, but we need to get out. We need to be in this community. People need to identify us with being in this community. And that's up to each and every one of us, because we do have something special to offer. Tell me another church, tell me another denomination where someone like me could be the minister, not a Christian, not heterosexual, pagan, humanist. Tell me another congregation where a woman could lead in this way, in this capacity, that's not Christian. I'm telling you, we have something special, and we need to share that. I know as Unitarian Universalist, we don't proselytize. I don't proselytize. A lot of people in my life don't even understand what I do, but we've got to change that. We have something that this community needs. We have something that this state needs. And most importantly, we have something that we each need. So much gratitude to this congregation's leaders. So much gratitude to the Board of Trustees who work diligently in the service of our mission and vision. I have a special place in my heart for this year's Board of Trustees because we've sat in meetings together, we've sat in retreats together, and in so many ways they have ushered me into this ministry. Of course, the staff who works so hard, who works so incredibly hard to keep this place running, and it is fueled by love. And I am not just saying that. Each and every one of our staff works diligently to bring this congregation into its mission and its vision. And of course, there's all of you. Those who keep showing up. Those who stuck it through. Those who came back. Those who showed up for the first time. Those who are here in this meeting on Sunday afternoon. You are the ones who keep this church going. You are the backbone of this community in Charlotte. You are the backbone of Unitarian Universalism where we live. I wanted a vibrant congregation, and by God, I got it. You are vibrant. This congregation is vibrant and alive in spirit, and I'm glad to be on the journey with each one of you. So here's to a dynamic year that has passed, and here's to what's to come. I remain faithfully in it with all of you, and there's no place I'd rather be. Thank you.
Let us remember those who went before us, on whose shoulders we stand, and who paved the road to travel. Let us remember our UU pioneers with admiration and gratitude, and bring hope and joy to those willing to lead in our future. Memories are for us to share and cherish, challenges to give way to growth, and the future is for us to mold together. Blessed be. Lastly, thank you all so much for participating in this process. This is your community. The meeting is now adjourned. Join me as we extinguish the chalice with these words. They come up.
That's all I got.